Hello, everybody. This is Nathaly with Unicorn Properties. We're here again with our podcast, and today we are going to Arizona with Scott. Thank you for being with us. We're super excited to talk to you, especially because you're going to bring a lot of value and knowledge on the team side of things. So, thank you, Scott.
Awesome. Yeah, I appreciate being here. Appreciate having me on.
So, for everybody who doesn't know you in our community, because we're international and you're in Phoenix, Arizona, who's Scott, and why did you get into real estate?
Yeah, that's a good question. Originally, I'll take you back. So I live in Arizona right now, but before I moved to Arizona, I lived outside Chicago, in Illinois. And I used to work in retail management. So I used to work for a major grocery chain up there, in Illinois. And I'd done that for so long. And then one day, and I used to work about 50 hours a week, so about 10 hours a day, 5 days a week. And then one day when I got off work, I right after I got off work, it's like -5 degrees outside, and I ended up getting a flat tire in -5 degree weather. And so it took me, I had to change, of course, this tire to my car, and it took me a good 2 hours to change this tire because my lug nuts were frozen to the tire. And so at that point, I was so upset and so angry at life, what was happening. I called my wife up, and I'm like, "That's it, we're moving to Arizona." And so I went home that night, took out a notepad, went to the kitchen table and with my wife, and kind of plan was to move to Arizona and to get into real estate at the same time because I was tired of working for someone else, working salary. It was definitely tough in the industry. And so as soon as that happened, she's like, okay, whatever. I don't think she thought I was really serious at that time. But I started applying for jobs down in Arizona because obviously you need income to help with a move like that. It's a pretty big move. And so I found another grocery chain down here that was actually hiring a bunch of managers at that point. And they ended up calling me up, doing an interview, and they ended up hiring me. And so I ended up, giving my old job a two-week notice, moved down to Arizona. When after I moved down to Arizona, I started working this new job, and I'm like, hey, this is a pretty decent job. I'm like, I think this is actually better than my previous employer. I'm like, I don't know if I'll really actually get into real estate because I got paid well and everything like that. Well, then after I was done my training program in management. I ended up, they ended up opening up a bunch of new stores. Well, whenever they open up a bunch of new stores, what do? They take away resources from old stores that are already open. And so what ended up happening was they started cutting all of our payroll and slashing, all of our resources. And we were running some of the busiest stores at that time. And so what do they expect you to do as a salary manager? They expect you to make up for it by working a lot more hours. And so I ended up working about 60 hours a week salary. So I was scheduled 6 10-hour days every single week. I'll only give myself one day off. And so then, right about before Thanksgiving, I had a friend that was coming down to visit us, and so I go to my boss and I'm like, "Listen, I know I can't have off the weekend." I'm like, "But can you give me off, Friday to pick them up from the airport, and can you give me off Monday and Tuesday so I can spend some time with them, before they leave and drive them to the airport?" And we'll see what happens. I can't, but no promises though. I'm like, okay, well, hopefully you can do this. Well, he ended up scheduling me every single day during that weekend. And then he gave another manager off. So I ended up going, as soon as my friend left that next week, I ended up going into real estate school and signing up for real estate courses. And so I called my wife up after I signed up for real estate school. And I'm like, hey, honey, I signed up for real estate classes. And she's like, you did what? I'm like, I signed up for real estate classes. She's like, why'd you do that? I'm like, we talked about this. I'm like, I was going to sign up for real estate classes, and get into real estate. And she's like, well, I thought you talked to me about it beforehand, before you actually did it. I'm like, well, it's done. I signed up for real estate school. And so I worked about 2 months. Um, and my goal was to get done with real estate school in 2 months, because I was having a house built in Goodyear. And so my goal was to complete my real estate classes. And then once I got my house complete, I would quit my job. And so, sure enough, worked 60 hours a week, went to real estate school, completed, graduated, and got my license right before my house was built. Closed on our house. It was actually at the end of January we closed on our house on a Thursday, and then the next day, Friday, I went into work and gave my 2 week notice and quit my job. And so then I ended up, of course, my wife was a little nervous at that time. And at the time, she was supposed to get in real estate with me as well, too. And so she, of course, was super nervous. I'm like, don't worry, honey, you're never going to have to work another holiday in retail again. Because she's a bakery manager at that point. And so I just came out of the gate working hard, did a bunch of open houses. I did 22 open houses my first 25 days in real estate, and then 5 open houses a week every week for 6 months. And it took me about 4 months to get my first paycheck, which was at the end of June. Well, the next month, after I got my first closing, my wife actually got in a terrible car accident. She actually got sideswiped while going to work at 2 a.m. in the morning. We had an eclipse with like a convertible at the time, so they basically had to take the jaws of life to get her out of the car. Tore two ACLs, tore her rotator cuff, and then had her disc in her back. And so because of that, she wasn't able to work anymore. So she ended up going out on disability. Well, of course, that's not, her previous income was barely enough to squeak us by. I mean, it wasn't enough to pay all of our bills, but it was close enough that we could survive. Well, now she's only getting paid 66% of her income, which definitely made it a lot tougher. But fortunately, because I came out of the gate working hard and grinding right away to get open houses and to do open houses and get business, by the time that she got in that car accident, that's when I started gaining traction from real estate. So it took me 4 months to get my first closing, but then by month six, I had eight closings, which kind of helped with that time frame. So in the meantime, she was on disability. Since she's on disability, I'm like, well, honey, you're not doing anything else anyways. You might as well go to real estate school. So she ended up going to get her real estate license while she was out in disability. Fortunately, her disability took her through the holidays. And so then about end of January the next year, her work calls her up and says, "Hey, you ran out of disability. You need to come back to work, or you need to leave." And so she ended up coming back to work. Worked there for a few weeks, but then she was just in so much pain she just couldn't because she was physical pain because of all the injuries that she had from the car accident. So I remember one day she called me up and she was crying. And she's like, I don't know what to do. I'm in so much pain. Blah blah. I'm like, well, quit your job. And so she quit her job at that point, and ended up getting real estate full time with me as well too. And that's kind of our journey, how we got into real estate.
Wow. No, that's a lot of for people who are watching, maybe, going transitioning and going full in on the real estate journey. I mean, it was a brave move because you're like, you sometimes you don't want to leave that safety net. And many people that might be watching is like, they're like, I have my full-time job. I don't know when I'm going to transition full-time into real estate. And it's a tough decision, especially if you're the brain, winner of your home, and especially with all the situations that were happening. So how was your mindset back then? Like, I mean, you went to 8 deals in 6 months. That's pretty good for the year one. You're kind of a newbie at that point, but you have the experience on the sales side of things. So how do you make that number? Because some agents sometimes don't even close one deal per year. The majority of our agents, some agents out in the world. So what was the formula that you used, let's say, in your first 6 months?
Yeah, I mean, so for me, one of the reasons why I was confident quitting my job is just I knew I'd outwork everyone. So the the reality of it is I just came out working hard, and that's what most people don't realize when they get into real estate how hard a work it is and how much effort you need to put into the industry. Because people think that you could just get paid a bunch of money, and and you show a few houses and you make a big commission check, and that's not really the way that it is. I think it's unrealistic expectations, and so I just knew I would outwork everyone. So that's kind of why I had the confidence to quit my job, is I knew I'd figure it out. And then kind of like I mentioned, I just kind of created a schedule for myself because I think one of the biggest things that people make mistakes on is when they first get into real estate, they don't realize that they still have to work. They still have to, now they're their own boss. And the hardest thing for most people to be in the industry is being their own boss because they're lackadaisical as a boss. So for me, what I do is I just told myself I was going to create a schedule. And so, like I said, 5 months, my first 6 months in real estate, I had five open houses a week, every single week. There was no off weeks unless I went out of town, maybe for like a random vacation or something like that. But otherwise, it was five open house a week, every single week for 6 months. Then my first full year in real estate, I did three open houses a week every single week for the entire year. Then my second full year, I did two open houses a week every single week for the entire year. And then eventually we started scaling it back until we got to 2020, where the houses were selling so quick, it became hard to find open houses. But because of all the work I did, my business kept continuing to grow. So when you're talking about like my first 6 months, I sold eight homes. My first full year, I sold 18 homes, and I've never sold less than 18 homes since then because we've always had a kind of a transaction increase
Mm-hmm.
every single year. So to me, it's just that mindset of saying you're your own boss. You have to kind of create your own schedule, and then it's a non-negotiable. You have to kind of stick to it.
Mm-hmm. And then after that, fast forward like to now, you specialize in building teams. You create that, and then you were mentioning also, how you as a team leader help locally your team physically there.
Yep, yep. So yeah, we so in 2022, I guess let me take you back to the first agent we ever brought onto the team. So, kind of like I mentioned, consistency is important, and being consistent with any lead generation activity is important. So, the first ever agent we brought onto our team, the only reason we brought her onto the team was because I was so busy that I was looking for an agent to partner with on open houses. Because I knew that I needed to be consistent, but I also had 10, 15 clients that were wanting to view homes on the weekends, and it became very hard to still do an open house and still have all these people that want to view homes. So the idea behind the first agent was, hey, we'll do open houses together. That gives me the flexibility that if I have to leave to do a showing or a buyer consult or listing presentation, I have the ability to do so. And then she would go ahead and be able to stay at the open house, still collect the leads, and then we'll follow up with them and stuff like that. And we kind of created like a little bit of a partnership at that point. And it used to be that me and my wife would do it together, which is perfectly fine. But then my wife started doing all of our follow-up calls and kind of became like the ISA of the team and calling all of our leads. Well, it's very hard to call 100 to 150 leads when you're at an open house. Calling a few might be fine, calling 100, 150. So that's actually why we realized that it's not sustainable for her to be able to do all of her follow-up while we're still doing open houses. So the idea was that she would no longer do open house with me. I'd find a partner together. And so that's the first ever agent we recruited to join our team. Next few years, we had a few agents join our team just by word of mouth, like looking for traditional coaching and mentorship and training. But about mid 2022 is where we started shifting focus within our organization, and I decided to step back from production at that point in mid 2022 and focus more on just the team growth, coaching, mentorship, and all that good stuff. And we grew from about 3 agents up to about 55 agents at our high point within about a 2-year time period.
Hmm. So by that point, you were running your own brokerage. You just had a team structure.
So we weren't running our own brokerage. We started off, we were kind of a team within a team.
Hmm.
I know I would mention this to you before. We actually originally joined Joshua Smith's team in the Phoenix area. And so we were kind of within his team structure. Now, Josh didn't provide leads to anyone or anything like that. He just provided like the systems, all that good stuff. And then we started providing leads to our agents, and that's when we kind of started growing. So we never started our own brokerage, but we are kind of a team within a team. And then we just kind of naturally grew ourselves within their organization. And because of the way he ran his organization, it made it very beneficial for us to do that without necessarily leaving the team.
Hmm.
And that's kind of what's allowed us to help because what most team leaders struggle to do the most is provide good training and coaching and mentorship to all their agents that are within their organization. That's where if you talk to a lot of team leaders out there, that's one of their biggest struggles is they feel like they have to do all the hand holding and like basically coach and train all their agents, and they're spending so much time doing that that they can't go out there and produce themselves, and their team typically suffers, and they end up getting out or they end up closing their team down pretty quick. Well, we're pretty fortunate that we're already in Josh's team, so I didn't have to train the agents because Josh already had a training platform. All I basically had to do was provide lead opportunities because I was providing leads to our agents on our team, and basically bring new agents on board. And then I did some like one-on-one coaching, mentorship, and training as well too. But he typically provided all the training from all the lead generation aspects of it. So, like for example, me, if I'm providing training, I did open houses. I crushed it with open houses. I could probably train someone how to be successful with open houses. Well, if someone wants to go ahead and grow a YouTube channel, or if someone wants to go ahead and call expired listings or FISBOs or something like that, I'm not going to provide much training on that, right? But I have access to training that I can provide to those agents. So if someone wants to do something different than what I've been able to do in my career, I'm able to kind of provide that to them. And so that's kind of what allows us to grow because I didn't necessarily have to train our agents other than just the personal mentorship and coaching and helping them and get guidance and business planning and stuff like that. But we were able to just kind of plug them into the training system that we already had. And then they're able to grow that way.
That's amazing. And you were sharing a little bit of your numbers before we got online, and I'm excited to just talk about those numbers because some people sometimes get stuck in a few deals a year, but they want to take it to the next level. So how was your production back then? And then what was your recent transition into EXP, in the last few months?
Yeah, so from my own personal production standpoint, before I started growing a team, from a personal production standpoint, like the year before I started growing the team, I sold about 50 homes a year. So 50 homes a year by myself before I started growing the team. Once we started growing the team, our business kept continuing to grow from there. So I've never taken a step back in production. It's always increased every single year since I've been in real estate, even though this market's a little bit slower, which typically to me, I love these type of slower markets because it's a great opportunity for agents who have that type of mindset to go out there and take additional market share. But between just from like the last couple of years, between 2023 to 2024, we did have an 88% transaction increase over the previous year. So we went from 103 transactions to 192 transactions that we sold last year. And then we had a 147% sales increase from 2023, 2024. 2024, we ended up doing a little bit over 80 million in sales. And then this year we're on pace to do above what we did last year. Right now, if our trend continues, we'll sell about 220 homes this year.
That's amazing. No, that requires a system for sure. And then the good thing is that you have your team right now to support those efforts. And when Joshua came to EXP, what was your mindset? Where were you at? Were like, do I move with, with the group, or do I stay here for a bit? What was your thought process? How long did it take you to make the move?
Yep. So obviously, Josh, at the time we were on the team, Josh ended up moving over in November of 2024. And maybe December 1st, I think might have been the exact date that he moved over there. And at the time when he decided to move, of course, he talked to me a long time before he actually officially moved over there because, we had a big team within his team. So he obviously wanted to have a conversation with me about it first to see if, where my head was at. And after a while thinking about it, I decided to end up staying with our previous brokerage when he moved over to EXP. And looking back now, I think that was actually the best decision I've ever made in my life by not moving over them. And the reason why I say that is because that gave me about 5 months to really analyze the EXP's model and how it could benefit our agents. And the time when Josh moved over, said I specifically told him and all of our agents, I'm like, I'm not going to move over unless I feel like it's in the best interest of every single agent on the team. I understood why it benefited me, but I need to understand how it would benefit our agents because if it didn't benefit our agents, I didn't want to make that move over there. And so I gave me about 5 months to really look at it and really analyze it and see what would make sense. And then I started realizing the more and more I looked at, the more and more excited I got because I realized that there's a way to structure our organization to where I can actually make our agents a lot more money, which is only what I want to do, right? I want to make sure I'm servicing our agents at the highest level and helping them out, help them stuff like that. And so there's two main reasons why we ended up moving over to EXP when we did. First, I knew that being with Josh, again, we could provide top-notch training to anyone out there, right? And then I also knew that one of Josh's biggest weaknesses, just from a pure standpoint, I think he'll probably tell you the same thing, was off of social media. He provides great training on open houses, Facebook ads, expireds, physicals. He's done all that stuff, but he's never really focused on YouTube, other than his own podcast. He's never focused on YouTube to grow his like production business. And so that's why, of course, he partnered with Mike Sharp at the time because Mike Sharp provides some of the best coaching training when it comes to social media, stuff like that. And so being able to provide the best training around and knowing in my heart that's the best training around, I always think whenever I'm bringing an agent on board, I always think that if they don't, join our organization, it's probably the biggest mistake of their life because they have the best access to the best training. So that was one of the keys. And then the second one was the way to structure to where we could benefit our agents. And so what we did within our team is we kind of created an extra level of support called the agent leader mentor. And so basically what happens is that's our top producing agents on our team who are out there crushing it at a very high level. They're selling homes like, one of our agent leader mentors is on pace to sell about 50 homes this year. And so the reality is she's a great person to learn from. And they're also in the field. I'm not personally in production anymore. So if an agent joins our organization and says, "Hey Scott, I want you to I want to shadow someone. Can I shadow you?" Be like, "Well, you can shadow me in front of a Zoom meeting all day, recruiting agents, but that's not really actually going to help you produce because I'm not in production anymore." So what we do is we created this agent leader mentor. So whenever we bring a new agent on board, we have them put one of our top producers as their sponsor, and then what ends up happening is that new has someone they can shadow, and that top producer is incentivized to help one of the newer agents. And then on top of that, our top producers also get revenue share from that agent's production. And so my personal goal, my personal mission is to help our agents actually make more money from revenue share than what they're paying out to EXP in a cap, even if they don't care about bringing anyone on board at all. And so we do that. So anytime we bring an agent on board, we always look at from a geographical location. Okay, where do you live? How do we, have you list one of our top producers as a sponsor, and what location is that going to look like? And then it's kind of a win-win. So as our team continues to grow, it's not just us as an agent, as a team leader that's making more money. It's all of our agents that are helping our team grow and help produce and stuff like that. They're going to make more money as well too. And so that's when I really started getting excited. And so that's why I ended up making the move when we did.
No, that's amazing. And the structure is super important because sometimes agents, when they join EXP, they don't understand how you can layer this to a point that it benefits all the agents in your organization. And that's very strategic that you did it by location, because any newer agents do still need that, contact with a human to understand what they need to do every day and how to structure a transaction, how to do the contracts. And by having that support, and then they still have you, they have access to you. That's the best of both worlds, I think. And based on the transition and how you came over, I'm sure that there were some agents, some obstacles that you faced, that you had maybe some pushback of some of your prior agents, people who might have stayed behind, or what were those obstacles that you faced from, let's say, people who didn't come with, or they took what, they were slower at coming with your
Yeah,
group.
I mean, I would say most of our top producers ended up moving over there. I think there's something as a team leader, there's a responsibility as a team leader to earn the trust of people that are following you, right? And so I think, as time goes on, I've had some agents, tell me he's like one agent in particular, he's like, if it was anyone else other than you, I wouldn't move. He's like, but because, I trust you and I trust your decision, he's like, I'll move over to EXP with you. And so there is something about when you're saying something, right? Like, for example, Josh, I trust Josh. I know he cares about us. I know he's, cares about our best interests and stuff like that. So, when he says something, I know that he thinks it's going to be in our best interest. And so I think there's something that you have a little bit of goodwill, especially if you're a strong team leader, where people that are on your team are going to typically have a little bit more of a trust for you, and they know that you care about them as individual people. You care about them, helping them, in the industry and stuff like that. So I think there is something to that too. So most of our top people moved over. There were a little people that were a little hesitant. I will tell you, some people that were hesitant love it now that they move over. They're like, they got so excited once they started kind of seeing some of that, some of the stuff take effect once we did move over. So a lot of them move, were pretty happy. There were, we had a lot of agents on the team. There were some agents obviously that didn't follow us over. Most agents that didn't follow us over really weren't doing production or really weren't focusing on real estate full time anyways. So some of them probably were even close to getting out of real estate, just because naturally, some people just don't have the motivation or the effort they want to put into it. So those are typically the only ones that didn't move over, where they're like, well, I don't pay a monthly fee because I'm not selling any homes anyways. And it's like, makes sense. If you're not selling homes anyways, you're not focusing on real estate. Why would you want to do that? I completely understand. But so those are probably the only ones we really lost. We lost a couple decent agents, but nothing that was like, obviously you never want to lose anyone, but I feel like even the decent ones, they really love being on our team, so I think they would probably come back. I think what they didn't realize though is that there's multiple different models we can offer now. Maybe that was my part of communicating that to them. But I didn't. But I think a lot of people that stayed were like, why do I was thinking about leaving the team anyways? Well, in the EXP's model, you can leave the team still, and you have that option as far as still having the coaching, training, and mentorship. So I always look at the independent agent model as kind of like being on the unofficial team, because you're still part of a team. You just don't get the team resources. So, but overall, the transition was very smooth. Like I said, almost all of our agents, especially our high performer ones, all moved over with us, and now have all been pretty happy with it.
No, that's amazing, and I think that speaks to your culture, right? Like your team culture, as you mentioned. What do you feel like you were saying? You have goodwill for your agents. They follow you, they trust you, and that takes years to build. It's not like over time that somebody's gonna trust you out of nowhere, and that intention of doing good for them. What is the culture like for your organization? And since many people that are watching might be, in those shoes, and maybe they're in your market in Arizona, and they need that support locally, what would be like to work with you? Like, what is the expectation? Do you guys do weekly meetings or in person, Zoom, besides what we already have with the Wolfpack?
Yes, own personal team meetings as well too. We have 3 different team meetings a week that we have. We have a mastermind every Tuesday, which is more collaboration, where people kind of just share what's going well, what's not going well, stuff like that. We do have a role play script practice every Wednesday as well too. Both of those are virtual typically, just because all of our agents are spread throughout the valley, so it does make it a little bit harder to get in person because It'd be a drive for people for no matter what part of town you're in. Someone's gonna have to drive very far, so it makes it easier virtually. And then Friday we have a meeting that's like a virtual huddle for anyone that gets leads on our team as well too. So we have three different team meetings. And then typically we try to do at least one in-person event every quarter. We actually have a lunch and learn coming up here at the end of September. One of our lenders' offices where our agents would come learn about different mortgage packages, warranty stuff like that. We just recently, I was talking to you about Armando and their team. We actually did a partnership with them because we're underneath their downline too, where their team and our team actually did an event together at Dave and Buster's last month, where we went to Dave and Buster's, had a good time, had some gaming tickets, things of that nature. So we try to do in-person events at least once a quarter is kind of like the main goal, if not more. And then I think one of the other things that agents struggle or teams struggle with a lot too is providing the support for their agents. And so one of the things that all of our agents know is that they can reach me anytime they need me via text, phone call, stuff like that. And I typically don't make them feel bad for reaching out to me. A lot of times, if you're a very poor team leader, what's going to happen is an agent will reach out to you and you're going to let them know that you call, right? Or you don't want to hear from them. But the way I look at it and the way I tell all of our agents is like, I know how successful you're going to be by how many times my phone rings. Typically the more my phone rings, the more I know you're out there working, doing the effort, and and asking the right questions. And I would always rather, get it right from the beginning than have to fix a mistake later on. So I prefer that you reach out to me with any question that you ever have, and I have no problem answering it and helping you. And so that's kind of the way that I've always approached it. And so our agents it's very easy to get a hold of me. I tell all of our agents I'm available anytime between 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. After those hours, you could try. We'll see what happens. I might be in bed. But normally, even if I'm on vacation, stuff like that, I mean, I want people to reach out to me. And so that's typically text is always easiest with them, especially if it's a question or whatever. But if it's a phone call, I usually try to call them back whenever I can. But that's the other thing too. I think from a culture standpoint, that a lot of team leaders struggle with is that they don't have the support when someone has a question. Their agents can't get a hold of anyone, and so not only can they get a hold of me, but I have a sales manager now, Doug. And so if for some reason they can't get a hold of me, they can get a hold of him, and he's also got the same type of mindset where it's easy to get a hold of him whenever someone needs help. And so that's the type of support that we provide our agents, which I think they appreciate.
That's awesome because then you have that complementary, covering like the office hours, let's say, and because you are part of the same group and the same family, you just care for each other to take care of the business, whether you're on vacation or not, without, physically paying somebody's a salary. But it is like everybody wins if we all win. So no, I love that win-win mentality, and since we're in a focusing on international in our podcast, but I wanna see what kind of buyers, or how's the Arizona market for people who relocate there? Maybe not from the outside of the U.S. or maybe within the U.S. What's the main market that people should keep you in mind for referrals, even for agents that are like, hey, I need somebody in Arizona, but then what cities do you cover?
Yeah, so we cover mostly the Phoenix metro area, so all the Phoenix and the surrounding suburbs. So typically Maricopa County and parts of Pinal County. So that's typically what we cover. The market's definitely it's an interesting market. Obviously, there's less transactions now, more listings hitting the market. So we have seen a little bit of a sales decrease over the last couple of years, but nothing super crazy. Just it takes a little longer to sell houses right now. So if you're a buyer in this market, you definitely have a lot more leverage than you have in the past. So I would definitely take advantage of it if you've been thinking about buying a home because you have more negotiating power when it comes to purchasing a home, which might not be the case, next year. So you want to take advantage of that right now. Like I said, I've helped a few international clients. Obviously, in Arizona, it's kind of like a melting pot of a lot of different people. I mean, I always joke that it's very rare to see someone like that was born in Arizona because everyone's moved here from different parts of the world. So I know there are a lot of people from different countries that move here in the Arizona market as well too. But just from a state standpoint, from relocation, I mean, typically we get a lot of people from California that move out to Arizona, and then we get a lot of people from Illinois. It's probably the two biggest states as far as transplants to Arizona. California obviously being number one because California is so expensive that people, there for $1 million and they move out to Phoenix and they can buy the same type of size house for like 500, $600,000, so we do see a lot of relocation down here in the Phoenix, Arizona area. But like I said, right now it's the best time to buy because you have so much leverage.
That's amazing. No, that's good to know because we're in Illinois right now. We're in Chicago. So people leave when it's too cold. And your story, back to your story, like it was too cold to even change your tire. I felt that's one of the reasons I kind of am hybrid too. I'm between Chicago, with most of our buyers come from, and we cover the Riviera Maya in Mexico for vacation homes. But it seems like it's similar. I'm tired of the cold. And for people who are tired of the cold, you're from Illinois, that you're thinking, who can I partner up in Phoenix to send my leads and then have that commission split? I mean, that's a great opportunity as well. Opens a lot of doors, especially for agents that don't have that chance to do it with, boutique brokerage, small brokerage, local brokerage that don't have those connections, or it's just harder and more tedious to send a referral, outside of their ecosystem. And with you guys in, covering the whole Phoenix area, it's super helpful to be like, hey, I don't know where the client wants to buy, but it's somewhere in Arizona. So then you can help them through the process of finding that warmer home for sure. So yeah, with that, I wanted to just thank you so much for your time. I mean, it was a great information, and your numbers are pretty, impressive. I love the drive of getting, you know, things done, help, focus on the production, helping the team grow, and also having somebody there to hold their hand if they're newer. So how can people reach out to you? What would be the best way to find you online as well?
Yep. So if anyone ever wants to just reach out to me from like a cell phone standpoint, they can always contact me, text or phone call. Text usually works best, especially if I don't have your phone number saved. But that's a 623-387-2688. Also to my email address is my first name Scott at thekumlergroup.com. So TheKum is in mother, LER group.com. And then also, of course, I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. So you can just look up on Instagram. I'm Scott Kumler, AZ Realtor. Facebook, you can just search for Scott Kumler. There aren't a lot of them out there. So you can should be able to find me on Facebook as well, too. And then also I have a YouTube channel as well, too. It's just titled Scott Kumler, so you can look up, Scott Kumler YouTube channel as well too. And I'm on YouTube, so it's pretty easy to get a hold of me. I can also send you my calendar link. So if any agents looking at partnering with us, they can obviously click on my calendar link as well too, and it takes you to book a Zoom meeting with me to kind of like have a conversation, what that partnership would look like. Even though we have a team in the Valley, I can help anyone kind of grow a team no matter what part of the country they're in, especially if they want to grow a team. So I'd be more than happy to partner with you and show you kind of like my blueprint of what I did to create that success.
Amazing. No, thank you so much, Scott, for taking the time, for sharing the resources. And we're excited to partner up with you in Phoenix for everybody who's like in the area and either they're new or they want to take their career to the next level. Thank
Awesome. I
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you, Scott. Hopefully, you enjoyed this episode. Our intention is for you to get inspired and just take your business to the next level. We just share tips, and if anything like we share resonates with you, you want to take your business global, you want to expand to other cities and states without the effort of incorporating every single state, and also you want to expand to other countries, you might want to chat with us. Maybe we can help you doing the step-by-step plan to get to that goal. If you want to have a group call between three of us or just have a one-on-one with me, I'm happy to connect. My calendar will be in the link below. And also, you can always text us or call us, and we'll be able to chat more about what are the needs that you have right now in your business and how we can cater to that with our platform. That's it for today. Stay tuned, and we'll see you guys in the next video.